Now, Professor Seyed Marandi, Chair of American Studies at the University of Tehran, is every sensible person's authority on things that are happening in his part of the world, and indeed farther afield. And I'm very glad to say, on this very dramatic knife edge that we stand in the Persian Gulf, Professor Marandi has been able to join us. Professor, as always, an honor to talk with you. I spoke in my monologue about the savagery of the American attack on Yemen, but in truth, they've never stopped attacking Yemen for a very long time. And yet the Yemeni people remain in their millions completely resolute. How do we account for that?
Well, it's a great honor being on your show, as always. I think it's obvious to everyone that Trump has made a major mistake. He doesn't have any special card up his sleeve that Biden did not have. He has the same weapons and the same destructive capabilities to murder women and children as Biden did. The arrogance of power, the arrogance of empire is what makes Americans constantly miscalculate, whether it was in Afghanistan or Iraq or elsewhere, or in Ukraine, as we see today. It is the arrogance of power that causes them to go in thinking that they're going to win this one because they are special and they're above and beyond the rest of us. And ultimately they fail and their empire weakens every time. And hopefully today we are witnessing the final days of this empire. The Ansarullah movement, which is, they're not the Houthis, as they're often called. The Houthis is a tribe. Ansarullah is a national movement, which includes Houthis and it includes others. And it has many allies in Yemen, and now it's a household name across the region. It is the heroic force that has stood up to the United States and to the Israelis, and which is alongside Hezbollah, has sacrificed to try to stop the genocide against another people, not their own, which I think is the ultimate sacrifice. But these people have fought against Saudi Arabia, their genocidal war alongside the Emiratis, this genocidal war that they carried out for 7 years against Yemen, with the support of the United States and the collective West. And they failed. And the Saudis spent hundreds of billions of dollars, not hundreds of millions, not billions, not tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars, and they're next door. So they were bombing day and night. They built up mercenary armies, and they failed. And they never took the capital, Sana'a. Why? Because Ansarullah is popular, because it is legitimate. It is not a proxy. Iran supports it. Iran is honored to support it, but they are independent. And they say that the Israeli regime, as long as it's carrying out a starvation siege, they will not allow its ships to pass through the Red Sea. They are enforcing the Genocide Convention. And what do they get in return? Instead of being thanked, the Americans and the British bombed them, and the Qatar, the Emirates, the Saudis, and Bahrain all facilitate the attack in order to bring them to their knees. But it's going to fail. It failed in the past, it will fail today, and it will fail in the weeks ahead. And I think we already see some signs, and I may be wrong, of Trump backing down, because he just wrote another message where he said the Iranians have now decreased their support. His previous rant was only 2 days ago. How could Iran decrease its support in 48 hours? So I think it's possible that he's recognized that this bombing campaign is not going to do any damage to the Ansarullah and Yemeni armed forces underground facilities. It's just murdering ordinary people, making Trump look as evil and sinister as Biden, and it is making Ansarullah more popular than ever before in the eyes of the people on the streets across the region.
I'll come back to these principalities that you referred to earlier in a minute, but I suppose the big enchilada is this. Is Trump and the UK Starmer? I don't know what they do, whether they blow up the tires of the aircraft before they take off, or some other menial task, maybe working the mess for the American pilots. But the US and UK, are they bombing Yemen as a proxy for bombing you, for bombing Iran? Is that Yemen's real crime? So far, neither the British nor the Americans have the bottle to bomb Iran, so why not bomb its neighbor with whom it has close and friendly relations?
I think there are a couple of things here. One is, I think that the United States knows that in Ukraine it's going to lose, and that Russia has the upper hand, and that however this war ends in Ukraine, the West and the United States and NATO, they're all going to look weak. And Trump is going to be blamed. So Trump would like to look strong in Yemen. And also, in order to battle, let's say, the deep state and his opponents, whether in Europe or in the United States, who are going to, I think, increase the pressure, especially as the economy will continue to get worse, most probably, he does want the Zionist lobby on his side. That's how I see it. But I think in addition to that, the point you make is probably the most important point, and that is that bombing Yemen is the next best thing to bombing Iran. They can't bomb Iran because Iran can destroy the global economy. So they bomb Yemen instead. They murder Yemeni women and children in the hope that they can intimidate Iran, but also in the hope that the Zionist lobby, that they will be satisfied with Trump standing shoulder to shoulder with Netanyahu in the slaughter of the people of Gaza and in the slaughter of women and children in Yemen. I think the military, the US military, knows quite well that a war with Iran would mean the end of the global economy as we know it. The oil and gas assets and its installations in the Persian Gulf region, along with the petrochemical plants and the refineries, and all the other the desalination plants, all of these are vulnerable. The Persian Gulf is not very wide, and Iran owns one side of it. That's why it's called the Persian Gulf. If there is war, these tiny Arab family dictatorships on the other side that host US bases, they won't last. Many of them, like Qatar, only have like 350,000 passport holders. Most people there are foreigners. They're indentured servants at best, if not slaves. The same is true in the Emirates. So if there is war, these regimes will all collapse very swiftly, and the global economy will collapse. And that will be the end of the US empire. It will be the end of Trump's presidency. And imagine if the global economy collapses, which will be catastrophic for all of us. Imagine how many people will be on the move. The Americans complain about immigrants from Latin America, which largely go to the United States because of the damage that the United States did to Latin America over the decades. Imagine if the economy collapses across the world. People in Latin America will be streaming to North America in much greater numbers than we see today. And the same is true in Europe. People from Africa and West Asia will be moving towards Europe like a flood, in far greater numbers than today, even though the economies of North America and Europe will also collapse. But people will be moving to where they think there may be hope. So it's mind-boggling, I think, what would happen if there's a war. And I think there are enough sane people in the Pentagon, sinister but sane, who would tell the president that this is simply a bridge too far. However, it's not impossible for there to be a war because you have the Zionist lobby and you have Netanyahu, whose personal interest is in war. Netanyahu has really destroyed the Israeli regime. He's exposed it to the world through his brutality and the brutality of the regime. The biggest loser in these 18 months is the Israeli regime because it's been shown to the world as morally illegitimate. But Netanyahu himself is a winner because he's been able to survive and stay in power because of these wars. So he is interested in expanding the war. But so far, I think probably the people in the Pentagon would have the upper hand and be telling Trump that war with Iran would be utterly disastrous.
Well, I was going to return to the principalities, but I think you've dealt quite comprehensively with them. So let me turn to Gaza. The ground invasion, albeit a pinpoint ground invasion, rather like the limited invasion of Rafah that you'll recall from last year, has begun. What's that all about in your point of view?
I think the very fact that we've had 18 months of genocide, with the exception of a brief break, where even during these 2 months where we had a so-called ceasefire, on average, 3 Palestinians a day were being murdered in the Gaza Strip, and the ethnic cleansing and murder in the West Bank increased dramatically. And we also had a murder a day in Lebanon. So this was never really a ceasefire. But except for these couple of months that it's been more quiet, the Israeli regime has been carrying out genocide basically because Netanyahu needs war. And so he cannot stop the war. He is going to have to constantly expand the war, enter Gaza, bomb Gaza, in order to satisfy his partners in government, his fanatical religious Zionists, in order to stay in power. And he has had success. You see the head of Shin Bet is now out. He's gotten his way. He's becoming more like the emperor of Israel. And the more secular, liberal Zionists, who are just as genocidal towards the Palestinians, they are very unhappy. And the divide in Israel and among the people who live in that regime, the divide is extraordinarily great, and some believe it can become deadly. So he needs to keep pushing. But I do not see the regime succeeding in Gaza, just as I do not see the United States succeeding in Yemen. They will only continue to slaughter more people, and they will become more despised. And George, I really think that in a way, restarting a Holocaust is even worse than continuing a Holocaust. For well over a year, people like yourself and others have been active to create awareness. But after a period of time, after months of seeing dead children and beheaded babies, it becomes normalized. But when the so-called ceasefire took effect, the international community took a collective sigh of relief. Even though, as I said, they were still killing people. But now when Netanyahu restarts this genocide, people are stunned and shocked. And especially in one day, he slaughtered over 400 people, almost 200 of them children. This angers people. It intensifies the animosity towards the Israeli regime. This, I think, is a huge mistake. It is evil, utterly evil, but it is also extremely damaging for the regime. I continue to believe that the Israeli regime is in its final stage of existence. I'm not saying it's going to end tomorrow or next week or next month or next year, but the world has been exposed to the world for what it is, and those powers that lie behind it have been discredited, and they continue to decline in power. These are dark days, but I believe that in the future we will see light at the end of the tunnel.
Finally, you are, of course, the chair of American Studies at the University of Tehran. Let me take advantage of that. You are a man of many parts. Did you have time to look at the JFK files that were released today, if indeed they were released? I've described it as looking for a needle in a haystack from which the needle has been removed. I'm wondering if you have any of the same feelings.
Yes, it is like looking for a needle in the haystack, and indeed the needle has been removed. But I think those who've been looking and those who understand a thing or two, they know exactly what it was that has been removed. And I think the very fact that it has been removed says more than enough. It says enough about what happened in the past, and it shows enough about us and a great deal about what the United States is today. The same is true with the Epstein files. At the end of the day, a lot of it will be redacted, but people will know enough. Those who want to know, those who want to open their eyes, they will see the truth. Just like in Syria, those who want to open their eyes to the reality of ISIS and Al Qaeda and that this was an American operation will understand it. Those who want to close their eyes and continue with their sectarian hatred, they will keep their eyes closed. Those Americans or Europeans who want to believe that the West, that the Western political establishment is the free world and that they're the most civilized of all of us, they can continue to close their eyes. But the rest of us in the West and the rest of those in Europe and the United States, they know that that needle is missing from the haystack, and they know with the Epstein files, they will not find that needle when those files are released either.